Imagine a world where the rules of the game are rigged, where the wealthiest few get richer while the rest struggle to stay afloat. What if I told you that the so-called free market is far from free, but instead carefully designed to benefit those at the top? In Saving Capitalism, Robert Reich pulls back the curtain on how our economy really works, exposing the hidden forces that have stacked the deck against ordinary people. If you're ready to understand the truth behind economic inequality and how we can change the system to work for everyone, this is the wake-up call you can't afford to miss. Robert Reich, a former U.S. Secretary of Labor, is one of the most respected voices in economics and social policy today. With decades of experience in public service, academia, and advocacy, Reich has been at the forefront of analyzing the growing divide between the wealthy and the rest of society. A professor at UC Berkeley, a best-selling author, and a vocal advocate for economic fairness, Reich's deep insights into how capitalism has evolved, and where it's gone wrong, make him uniquely qualified to tackle the subject of inequality. In Saving Capitalism, he combines his academic expertise and real-world experience to offer a compelling argument for reforming the system, ensuring it works for everyone, not just the privileged few. Saving Capitalism, for the Many, Not the Few by Robert Reich is a powerful exploration of the current state of capitalism in the U.S. and how the system has been skewed to benefit a small elite while leaving the majority behind. Reich, a former U.S. Secretary of Labor and renowned economist, argues that capitalism, as it stands today, is not working for most Americans and that fundamental reforms are needed to restore balance and fairness. Let's dive into the core concepts of this book and explore how Reich's analysis can offer valuable insights for those of us seeking to understand and improve our economic system. The myth of the free market. One of the central arguments of Saving Capitalism is that the idea of a completely free, self-regulating market is a myth. Reich argues that markets are not natural entities that exist in a vacuum. Rather, they are structured and maintained by rules and regulations created by governments. Everything from property rights to antitrust laws and bankruptcy rules shapes the market, which means that markets are fundamentally human creations. The key takeaway here is that the market is a political construct, and it's shaped by those with power and influence. Reich dispels the illusion that the free market can operate without government intervention. Instead, he shows how rules that favor corporations and the wealthy have been intentionally designed to concentrate wealth and power. The question, therefore, is not whether we should have regulation, but whose interests these regulations should serve, the majority or the elite. The power shift from the people to the corporations. Another critical concept in the book is the shift of power away from the general public and towards large corporations and wealthy individuals. Reich highlights the growing influence of corporate money in politics, particularly in the U.S., where lobbying, campaign contributions, and corporate-funded think tanks have undermined democratic processes. This creates a feedback loop where the rich and powerful have the ability to shape laws and policies in their favor, further consolidating their wealth and influence. Reich argues that this corporate capture of politics has eroded the power of ordinary citizens to influence economic policies. As a result, inequality has worsened, and public trust in democratic institutions has declined. The solution Reich proposes is to reduce the influence of money in politics and to restore the balance of power so that the needs of the broader population are represented. The breakdown of the social contract. Reich also addresses the breakdown of the post-World War II social contract, which provided a sense of economic security for many Americans. For much of the mid-20th century, economic growth was broadly shared, and there was a general belief that hard work would lead to a better life. However, beginning in the late 1970s, income inequality began to grow, and the wealthiest Americans started to pull away from the rest of society. The social contract, the idea that workers contribute to the success of the economy and, in return, should benefit from its growth, has been broken. While productivity has continued to rise, wages for most workers have stagnated, and the middle class has eroded. Reich argues that this has not happened by accident but as a result of deliberate policy choices that prioritize corporate profits over worker welfare. The role of monopolies and big corporations. In Saving Capitalism, Reich discusses the growing dominance of monopolies and oligopolies, which stifle competition and harm consumers. He explains that many industries, such as pharmaceuticals, telecommunications, and finance, are controlled by a handful of giant corporations that use their power to dictate prices, wages, and even government policy. This concentration of economic power, Reich argues, undermines the very principles of capitalism, which relies on competition to foster innovation and fair pricing. For Reich, breaking up these monopolies and restoring competitive markets is essential to saving capitalism. He suggests stronger antitrust enforcement and policies that encourage entrepreneurship and small businesses as ways to counteract the growing dominance of corporate giants. Inequality, the result of policy, not market forces. A key argument in the book is that economic inequality is not the result of natural market forces but of political decisions. Reich contends that the rules of the market have been rigged to benefit the wealthy, leading to a widening gap between rich and poor. Tax policies that favor the rich, the weakening of labor unions, and the erosion of the minimum wage have all contributed to this growing inequality. Reich emphasizes that the economic system is not beyond repair, but it requires a shift in priorities. Policies that invest in education, healthcare, infrastructure, and social safety nets would help reduce inequality and provide opportunities for those who have been left behind by the current system. The solution to inequality, Reich argues, lies in a fundamental rethinking of economic policy to prioritize the well-being of the many rather than the few, the struggle for economic justice. Reich also highlights the importance of economic justice in ensuring that capitalism works for everyone. He believes that the economy should serve society, not the other way around. In a just society, people would have access to decent wages, affordable healthcare, quality education, and opportunities for upward mobility. However, Reich warns that without significant reforms, the current system will continue to exacerbate inequality, leaving many people trapped in poverty or low-wage jobs. Reich suggests that a new social movement is needed to demand economic justice. This movement would advocate for progressive taxation, a living wage, universal healthcare, and other policies that would redistribute wealth and ensure that everyone has a fair shot at success. Reich draws parallels between the current moment and past social movements, such as the labor movement and the civil rights movement, which successfully pushed for major reforms, restoring trust in democracy. A recurring theme in Saving Capitalism is the erosion of trust in democratic institutions. Reich argues that economic inequality and corporate dominance have led many people to lose faith in the government's ability to represent their interests. This distrust has contributed to the rise of populist movements on both the left and the right, as people seek alternatives to a system they see as rigged against them. To restore trust in democracy, Reich calls for reforms that would make government more responsive to the needs of ordinary citizens. These include reducing the influence of money in politics, expanding access to voting, and creating more opportunities for civic engagement. Reich believes that a functioning democracy is essential to saving capitalism, as it is the only way to ensure that the economy serves the public good. The path forward, reimagining capitalism. In the final sections of the book, Reich offers a vision for reimagining capitalism in a way that works for everyone. He calls for a shift away from the current model of shareholder capitalism, which prioritizes profits for investors, toward a model of stakeholder capitalism, which considers the interests of workers, consumers, and communities. In this new model, corporations would be held accountable not just to their shareholders but to all the stakeholders affected by their actions. Reich also advocates for policies that would reduce economic inequality, such as raising the minimum wage, expanding access to healthcare and education, and implementing progressive taxation. He believes that these reforms are necessary to create a more inclusive and sustainable economy. Capitalism for the many, not the few. At its core, Saving Capitalism is a call to action. Reich argues that the current system is unsustainable and that without significant reforms, economic inequality will continue to grow, eroding the foundations of democracy. However, he remains optimistic that change is possible. By rethinking the rules of the market and making them work for everyone, Reich believes that we can save capitalism and create a more just and equitable society. Reich's message is clear: capitalism is not the problem, but the way it is currently structured is. By rebalancing the system to serve the many, not just a few, we can ensure that capitalism remains a force for good in the world. For anyone concerned about the future of our economy and our democracy, Saving Capitalism offers a compelling and hopeful vision for what is possible. Thank you for listening. Please support us by subscribing to our channel.